Okay, so I'm making this video response to my cousin's message because I think it's easier to voice my opinion than to type it. So it's just a lot easier for me to give my valid opinion. So what I'm going to do is I got the messages back and forth from me and my cousin Dawson, and I'd like to just talk about them. So here's a problem. I read today a comment that says, "Someday I'm unfortunately going to have to tell my grandkids that I lived through a president that defends a racist terrorist group. Unbelievable." Now, obviously, when I read this, I said to myself, What? What? Our president defended a racist group? That can't be. So I asked for proof. Citations, some sort of evidence to back up your claim, which is how you would write a paper you need some sort of proof. So I asked for it by saying, quote, "Please." He responds with a meme, I guess you would call that, a meme, where the president denounces both sides. Now that is true, that is what the president did. He denounced both sides because he denounced anybody who had to violently show their opinion. Here's the problem. We could stop the conversation right now if I wanted to, because what you said is someday, and I'm guessing someday meaning in about 30 years when you have grandkids, because I'm guessing you're in your young 20s, early 20s, meaning you won't have grandkids for another, 30 years, well, maybe when you're 50, maybe when you're 65, 40 years, but let's say 30 years. So in 30 years, you're going to tell your grandkids that because the president denounced both sides, that he defended a terrorist group. Where in that quote does it say, "I, Donald Trump, defend the KKK"? Now, when I talk about this group from now on, I'm just going to refer to the alt-right, the entire right side, the protesters who had the permit as Klansmen or KKK. It's just easier to say. I'm guessing they weren't all Klansmen. I'm sure they were just people who associated with them. But nonetheless, we'll call them Klansmen. Then a group of anti-protesters came out, and that was Antifa. If you don't know about Antifa, you're not watching the news. Antifa is a group of a bunch of college kids who have been indoctrinated by their liberal professors to go out and stop speech that they don't like. Proof is the fact that colleges have safe spaces. It's teaching people, if you don't like someone's words, you can either go to your safe space and hide, or you can get violent and break shit until you force them to stop. That is what Antifa does. That is who Antifa is. In the state of New Jersey, Antifa is a terrorist organization, and I'm sure other states will follow soon. So, when we're talking about this whole situation, we're going to refer to two groups. I'm sure there was innocent people in the middle that just showed up for supporting one side or the other, but the main cause of the problem the other day was two groups: the white supremacists, KKK, and Antifa. So already you've said that you've lied. You've said that Donald Trump defended a group, and then you posted proof, and your proof says, "I denounce both sides." I also denounce both sides. I denounce Antifa, and I denounce the KKK. I don't agree with either of their ideologies. Does that make me a racist? Am I defending the KKK? No. Am I defending Antifa? No. I denounce both sides like the president, our president Donald Trump did. And that doesn't mean that I or he is picking a side. So already you're wrong. And it's okay to be wrong, but I don't want you in 30 years telling your grandkids a lie. So that's what I said in my next post. So in 30 plus years, you'll have to tell your grandkids that 30 or so years ago, the president at the time said that both sides were to blame. That's what you would tell them. If you were to tell them the truth or show them this meme you presented me, you would have to tell them he denounced both sides. He didn't pick a side. He denounced both sides. Your response: the only insane thing about that is Trump placed blame on both sides. So now you're admitting it. He placed blame on both sides. When one group was specifically targeting another, aiming to inflict violence. You're referring to the KKK in your post. I disagree. I don't think they were there to start a fight. They were there the night before with a permit to protest the removal of a Confederate statue. That's why they were there. They weren't there to fight with people. Antifa showed up as a counter-protest, and they were there to fight. Proof is in the video. Watch the video. Antifa showed up in riot gear, full body armor in certain situations, makeshift weapons, coolers with urine balloons and pepper spray and mace and sticks with nails on it. I mean, if anybody showed up to fight, it was Antifa. When you get in a boxing ring and you put boxing gloves on, you are ready to fight. If you get in that same boxing ring with a microphone in your hand, obviously you're there to maybe ask some questions. There's a difference. So I obviously say negative. Let's see. You said what happened in Charlottesville was horrible and horrendous. I agree. It was horrible and horrendous. But that doesn't mean I'm going to pick a side and say one was worse than the other. No, I'm not going to do it. And the fact that Nazis and white supremacists are not receiving 100% of the blame appalls you. And you have that right to be appalled. But the problem is, how can you sit there? How can you sit there and say that Antifa had 0% of the blame? When you show up with weapons, you have a little bit of a problem. I responded to, negative, every big protest in the country that's happened in the last year involving Antifa. Look up UC Berkeley. They rioted, broke shit, set shit on fire to stop speeches that they didn't like. That's what they do. It was a counter-protest, correct. They weren't looking to fight. Incorrect. They were looking to fight. They were provoked by neo-Nazis and hired militias with Confederate and Nazi flags on their uniform. I semi-agree with that. I'm not sure how you assume that anybody was hired. Militia? But we'll skip that because it makes no sense. The guy that drove a car into a group of people was a white supremacist. Yes, I agree. He was, according to what I've seen in the news, and I always check many sources, as you should do the same, not just watch the Young Turks all day. I checked both sides, and so far everyone's in agreement. The car was operated by a young 20-year-old white kid who associated with the alt-right. We'll call him the KKK. So yes, his ideology was flawed, and yes, he did a horrendous act. It was wrong, but that doesn't mean that Antifa doesn't have a part of this. They do. I responded, negative. One group was there to protest, KKK, and the other was there to fight and cause damage, Antifa. Every big protest, I already went through that one. Antifa, blah, 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 blah. Okay, so then you go on with saying it was a counter-protest. We did that one. They should not have been there. True, they did not have a permit. I do not agree with having to get a permit to protest. But because that is the law, one of the groups, KKK, followed the law. Law-abiding KKK, apparently. Another group, Antifa, did not. They showed up to fight. You say, okay, so this is what you're saying to me. My opinion. Al Brown has me. Your opinion. The fact that one side protested without a permit holds more weight than the fact that the other side intended to cause harm to other human beings. No, I did not say that, and I will never say that. A permit doesn't give you a right to fight. The permit gives you the right to protest. A permit does not give you the right to go out and run people over. That's not my opinion. I do not appreciate you giving me my opinion, but that is definitely not my opinion. I again repeat myself. Both sides are to blame. If I was walking down the street, this is an example. If I was walking down the street, Dawson, and I started yelling at you, making name calling you, and let's just say I said you're an evil white man, and you got mad and said I'm not an evil white man, and you came over to me and we started to fight. Whose fault is it? It's both our faults. I tried to start a fight. You went along with it. We both got into a fight. Because I made a racist comment doesn't mean I'm worse. Doesn't mean I take more blame for the fight. Negative. That is not how it works. I have the freedom of speech. If I want to call you a dumb white guy, I can. If we get into a fight, we are both participating in that fight. It is both our faults. Not my fault more than yours because of a racial slur. It makes no sense. The white dudes, as I refer to them here, but I will call them KKK. The KKK has every right to be there protesting without having to worry about being beaten up. That is correct. Just because you don't agree with their ideology, I do not agree with their ideology. I think racism in 2017 is insane. But they have that opinion. They have the right to that opinion. They have the right to yell it out as loud as they want, wherever they want, whenever they want, without having to worry about getting beaten up. That is how the world should work. That is how our laws are set up. I can go out on the street and say, I hate black people, and I shouldn't have to worry about getting shot by a black person. But if I do, then you go from there, you charge him with murder, yada, yada, yada. But the point is, according to the Bill of Rights that you pull up in your next comment here, that's what it says. You say, I disagree, merely because violence did not need to take place. Correct, 100%. Violence did not need to take place. Words can be said. Correct. You are correct here. It's in the Bill of Rights. You are definitely correct. I like the fact that you pulled up the Bill of Rights, because the Bill of Rights, whether you like it or not, actually says those KKK members had every right to do what they did. That's what the Bill of Rights says. They can go there and protest with tiki torches all day, every day, and you don't have the right to hit them with nails and boards and throw balloons full of urine at them. That's not what the Bill of Rights says. It does not say that. It says you have the right to your freedom of speech, freedom of religion, freedom of the press. I personally carry a Bill of Rights around with me everywhere I go. I got one right here. Right here. Bill of Rights. Jury book, but Bill of Rights. Okay, so here's another logical fallacy on your part. You say it's the fault of whoever started the violence. Okay. I responded, so you blame Black Lives Matter for cops getting shot in Dallas. What you just said, you said it is the fault of whoever started the violence. So when Black Lives Matter is marching down the street saying, what do we want? Dead cops. When do we want them? Now? And one of their minions hears this and goes out and actually shoots cops, you are saying Black Lives Matter is at fault. But when I bring that up, you say I'm talking about Charlottesville, which really confuses me. It makes me believe that you only look at your logic in this situation, but another situation when the colors are mixed and the ideologies are mixed, you don't hold the same logic. So the white people were wrong and they're to blame, but the black people made that the cops get shot and they're not to blame. I'm confused. Why would you have one set of rules for one group and another set of rules for another group? That's not how it works. So we'll get back to Charlottesville, though. We'll let go of this Dallas Black Lives Matter thing because obviously you don't want to talk about it. You say, Albert, they were there protesting, not starting violence. The white dudes felt threatened, so they turned to violence. I'll agree with that. Excuse me. I personally believe that the whole situation, that is what happened. I mean, the KKK came out to protest. Antifa came out to start a fight. The white guys, the KKK guys, felt threatened, and they both got into a fight. That's what happened, okay? So, I say... Where did I go? I say, listen, we're never going to agree, and that is fine. That is fine. But your whole life, and this is the truth, listen, man, your whole life, your entire, from birth to now, you've spent your entire life in a very, very liberal part of the country. As a matter of fact, it's probably in the top two, equal to, if not just right behind California. Very liberal. So when you spend 20 or some years living in a liberal society, as you do, you tend to look through the world through a skewed lens, okay? You're looking at the world through a liberal lens, and you're not seeing the other side of the argument because you've never had a chance to see the other side of the argument. If you take out ideologies, you take out why everyone was there, and you just look at the facts, it boils down to two groups fighting each other, and one of the groups resorting to a horrendous act. It is both their faults. Okay, it is both their faults. And again, I repeat at the end, in 30 years, this won't even make history, and that is true. Listen, if I tell my grandkids about anything, it'll be about 9/11, because even though that was, 16 years ago, it still feels like yesterday, and I still remember it like yesterday because it was such a big event. This was not. This was one death. A horrible, unnecessary death, but one death nonetheless due to a riot. That happens all the time. The LA riots were worse than this, and you probably aren't going to tell your grandkids about that, so don't... But here's what it boils down to. Whether we're arguing or not, it doesn't matter, okay? What it boils down to is, in 30 years, when you do have grandkids, do me and yourself a favor. Don't lie to them. Don't tell them. If you tell someone 30 years from now who wasn't alive and has no memory of this event, if you tell them that 30 years ago our president supported the KKK during this riot, you are lying. You are lying. You know you're lying because your very first response proves that he didn't take sides. He denounced both sides. So please, in 30 years, if you do even remember this, and you do want to tell your grandkids about this, don't lie. Tell them the truth.